Hey everyone, thank you for joining me for episode number 7 of the Mobile Woodshed. On this episode, we're going to talk about the late great Magic Sam. I first got hip to Sam via my great friend Shakin' Dave Hussong, and it was this album in particular, Magic Sam Live, which features a performance at the Alex Club in Chicago and the Ann Arbor Blues Festival in 1969. And Dave was particularly zealous about the Ann Arbor show because he was there, and he would claim that you could hear him cheering on the finale tune Lookin Good, and I think I can hear him. But just a little bit about Magic Sam. He was born in Grenada County, Mississippi, and first got attracted to music via the local square dance music, actually. A fiddle player named Roy Moses in particular had an impact on him, and he started by using, like so many other blues artists, like Robert Johnson, on a single string instrument. They called it a diddley bow, and that's where Bo Diddley got his namesake. But it would be like two bottles on a wall, one string, and then use another bottle to, get melodies. And he graduated to guitar, and all this preoccupation with music and avoiding his chores would cause some pretty intense conflicts with his dad, and so much so that a neighbor was concerned and contacted Sam's aunt that lived in Chicago, his Aunt Lily, who was, lo and behold, married to a blues musician named Shaky Jake Harris, harmonica player. And Sam would go and live with them and continue playing guitar, and he was, taking it to high school every day. Before long, he fell in with something called the Morning View Special Vocal Group, which I'm not sure if there's any recordings of them or him with them, but them and Homesick James, and he would build a reputation as a great singer and guitar player, and get signed to Cobra Records, where he'd record some pretty iconic sides, All Your Love and Easy Baby. And going back to Hubert Sumlin, who we talked about in the last interview or episode, when we talk, I asked him about Magic Sam, and they were good friends, and they lived about 16 blocks apart in Chicago. They were also born not too far apart in Mississippi, but later on they would run back and forth to each other's place in Chicago. He said without any guitar case and jam, and Hubert claimed that Magic Sam came up with the riff for All Your Love in his basement. So just a cool little fact to share. But Sam would get drafted by the Army and receive dishonorable discharge for desertion, and would spend 6 months in military prison before getting back into the scene in Chicago. And along with Buddy Guy and Otis Rush, I've got some old cards here. They'd become the architects of what they'd call the West Side Sound, which is a whole thing. And Magic Sam then would get signed by Delmark and make this record, West Side Soul, iconic album, and then Black Magic, his last album. And he'd get bookings all around the country and over in Europe. And Ann Arbor Blues Festival happened in the summer of 1969, and I just want to share this lineup that they had. I'm not sure if I have all the names here, but this is just surreal who was there. T-Bone Walker, B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, who apparently was ranting and raving about the recent moon landing, Freddie King, Otis Rush, Luther Tucker, Luther Allison, Lewis Myers, Big Mama Thornton, James Cotton, Jimmy Dawkins, Lyden Hopkins, Mississippi Fred McDowell, Sleepy John Estes, Yank Rochelle, Arthur Crudup of That's All Right Mama fame, Clifton Chenier, Big Joe Turner, Roosevelt Sykes, and I'm sure there's more that's not listed here, but just blues who's who, unreal. And I had another friend that was there, actually a bandmate of Shakin' Dave's, Jose Higgins, and I'd go to Jose's house and sit on his porch, and he'd tell me stories. And he had this memory of seeing a group of people gathered around someone playing, and he made his way up to the little gathering, and it was Mississippi Fred McDowell. So just dreamlike stuff to me. Magic Sam would show up to Ann Arbor late and without a drummer, and he recruited Sam Lay to play with him, and Buffalo Bruce Barlow on bass, and they launched into an iconic set that's documented on this album here. So I'm going to cover that tune, Lookin Good, that was the grand finale, and talk a little bit about boogies that might have influenced that. I have a theory that Junior Parker's Feeling Good was a big influence. That's another tune that Sam actually covered that I think is probably a direct source. And we'll go further back to Boogie Chillin' by John Lee Hooker and talk a little bit about Freddie King's Boogie Funk that I think probably came from seeing Sam doing Lookin Good. So thank you so much for joining me, and without further ado, we'll get into some playing. All right, let's get into the first incarnation of Lookin Good by way of the studio version on this great album, West Side Soul, where I believe it first appeared. So there's quite a contrast between the studio version and the live versions that I've found. Mostly in that the studio version, the tempo is pulled considerably back, and his guitar tone is a lot cleaner, though those live recordings, you know, the overdriven sound of his guitar might be attributed to the lo-fi reel-to-reel recorders that picked it up, though that sounds really cool to me. But back to the studio version. This whole thing, it's based out of A, and you know, your classic A cowboy chord there, but you're going to bar it with your first finger. And sort of the anchor riff that holds everything down is this. And we should note that Magic Sam didn't use a pick. He used just his fingers on his right hand. And what seems to be a common thread through a lot of the artists that we've covered so far, and just in American music generally. So I always thought of that Shortening Bread song, the old tune, Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening, Mama's Little Baby Loves Shortening Bread. It's kind of got that bounce to it. Another part, the main part of this riff is this little thing here. And what's going on there is he's hammering on from the D on the B string to the E on the B string, then catching that flat third on the G string. Back into the riff. For years, I've played this wrong because I just learned it before I saw a video of him playing it. And I've always done it in first position here. And that's how I still do it because it just comes easier and it's more second nature to me. But this is the proper way. Sometimes, little call and response thing, hammering on again to the E from the D, but catching that high G on the high E string. Another main difference on the studio version is there's actually a second guitar player, none other than Mighty Joe Young. And he's sort of in the right side. If you wear headphones, you can hear him more on this side. And he's doing something like... F sharp, G, catching that C on the fifth string. It kind of weaves in and out and polys off what Magic Sam's doing in a really cool way. Another main motif is this thing. Which is, I guess you just call that a dyad. It's on the high B and E string, E, G, down to that. It's kind of like the top of a D chord. And then the flat third and high E. Another little call and response thing. So this goes around a few times, and on both the studio and live versions, there's always these guitar breaks where everybody cuts out except for Sam, and he gets into more of this rolling deal. It's like... And what's going on there is still using that barred A, but hammering on from the low E onto the G to the G sharp, and sometimes also hammering on from the A onto that C sharp. You can see my right hand. Sometimes catching a little bit more meat of the chord, but mostly based out of 5th string, G string. Sometimes they'll throw in a high G, like. And also sometimes he'll use this shape here to do high E. I'm sorry, yep, well, it's the high E, but A, G, and hammering on to the E on the B string. Another thing in that guitar break is the use of octaves, and you can see this clearly in a live video of him. It's in Germany. It's well known. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. He's actually playing Earl Hooker's guitar, which was a Univox guitar, Les Paul copy. That's why I picked this guitar for today. But it had Earl's name and truck stop stickers on it, and it's a ferocious version of this tune. But you can see him using octaves, and you can see that he's using his first finger and pinky to form them. And this whole thing is. So C, 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 D, C, A, and he answers with that hammer on to G, A. And that middle section sort of climaxes with this cool build where he's sliding into those dyads again, but more like. Slide up to the D, which is the top of a D7, with so now we're into the 4, and he's dead thumbing that D. Back to A. Band comes rocking back in. So that's about all I can really relay about the studio version. We're going to talk about a few live versions here in a moment. All right, so we're going to move on to this live version here from the Ann Arbor Blues Festival. And just a little more history. Magic Sam was scheduled to go on at 3 p.m. that day, and at 2:55 he was nowhere to be found. So Charlie Musselwhite kept the crowd occupied for a little bit. Magic Sam finally showed up, but without a drummer, and he said, "Hold on, I'll be right back." And he recruited Sam Lay. On bass was, I think his name is Bruce Barlow, Commander Bruce Barlow, and he later played with, it says here, Commander Cody. And anyway, it's just wild. I don't think Sam even had a guitar. He might have borrowed his guitar as well. And just to show up that way and play one of the most ferocious sets in blues history, if you listen to it, it's a very lo-fi recording, but it's just, you can tell that the air is just crackling with electricity, and he really works the crowd into a frenzy. So let's get into it. To get a little bit more of that sound, I've turned the gain up on this amp. A little dirtier. And yeah, the tempo is quite a bit hotter, so we're more like is a bit more aggressive and amped up and percussive. A lot of right hand muting too. I didn't really mention before. There's another little nuancy thing I hear him throwing in on live versions. I'm pretty sure I hear him doing a slide up, quick slide up and slide down on the B string around the D note. And once he gets into that the guitar break stuff, he works in piling back and forth between the A here on the E string and the G, so it gets into let's see. You can hear him too when he goes about 4, mostly on the live ones. He'll hammer on from, let's see, hammering onto the C, and hitting the D, open D. A little sloppy, but hopefully you get the idea. So there's many live versions to check out, at least a handful. What I found is live at Mandrakes, live at Avant, Garde, and I had no idea that he played Royal Albert Hall, but there's one on YouTube if you can find it, and the classic Germany one, which has the actual visual going on. So I will put a link in the description to links to all these live shows, so you can hear him do it live. All right, so let's talk about some corresponding boogie tunes. One being Freddie King's Boogie Funk that he'd play in the 70s. And I can't help but think that it was most likely inspired by Lookin Good. Freddie King would jam with Magic Sam. Sam would do these things called Blue Mondays at the L&A Club in Chicago. And there's an account in these liner notes of Freddie King showing up one night and, they were cutting heads, or however you want to put it. And Freddie King did Hideaway and Magic Sam did Lookin Good, and I just think that's probably where Freddie got his thing together. I could be wrong. But Boogie Funk, Freddie King, pretty aggressive, percussive take on this whole thing. He starts with just, it's also an A, but he starts with an open G. Partly the really percussive sound you could attribute to. He used a metal thumb pick, and I think one on his first finger too. He keeps that going, and he's got another main motif, this so you're on the G string, hitting A, pulling off to the open G, back to A, catching that C on the 5th string. And something he throws in is, I think goes back to Junior Parker's Feeling Good, which we'll talk about here in a moment. I had an aha moment about Feeling Good just now, but he'll go do these chicken squawks, that's the technical term, up here, 12th fret, 1st finger, 2nd finger on the 13th. Sounds something like organs, they're doing a call and response thing. And then he cues the 4 by 4 times. Open G. So that's kind of the main idea, and something that sets Freddie's apart a bit too is he'll get into some single line, just being Freddie King, all that stuff. So, what I wanted to mention though, Feeling Good, I had a eureka moment, I think, and that Magic Sam covered that tune, the old Junior Parker tune that was recorded for Sun Records, had Pat Hare on guitar. But I think that might be the direct influence on Lookin Good. We'll go one step further back in a moment, but Feeling Good was like... That's kind of in the ballpark there. Fabulous Thunderbirds do a great version of that as well. All right, well, let's talk about the boogeyman himself, Mr. John Lee Hooker. I think all these tunes we've been talking about probably lead back to him and a tune he recorded in 1948 called Boogie Chillin'. We're in open A and capoed at the 2nd fret, which puts us technically in B. And this has this going on. So what's going on? He's got this thing going throughout, and he's doing these rolls, which I'm not sure if he's just using one finger or 3, but it's pretty brilliant because it's like this chromatic run, but instead of using his pinky there, he just uses the open string. The genius of John Lee. And then he'll do this other one that's 4th fret, 5th fret, 6th fret. It sounds to me like he's using one finger. And he'll throw in dyads too, like in Lookin Good, but since we're in open tuning, you would just bar them. High B and or the high B, B string and high E. And on this tune, when he sings, he goes to the 4, and he uses a C shape to illustrate the 4, and it's got a really exotic sound when you just play that C shape in open A. I've always loved that, and he kind of has this. He's just barring those top 2 strings and piling off the 10th fret with his pinky. Probably got out of hand with the tempo here. So I recommend checking out the 1948 version, and anything John Lee Hooker does is great. So I hope this was helpful for you, and maybe you can grab back some things and maybe even come up with your own boogie thing. So thank you all for tuning in and supporting this channel and this series, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.